right, Dom Giordano Show. A lot of stuff happening, but Commissioner Joe Gale out there in Montgomery County contacted me the other day, wanted to come on because Dr. Valerie Arcouche is wanting to raise her salary and the salary of her stooge. I guess it's the same stooge he's had for a number of years. And Joe doesn't want to do that? Oh, come on now. A politician that doesn't want to raise their salary? Let's go to Montgomery County Commissioner Joe Gale. Hey, Joe, thanks for making us aware of this. What can you tell us about it?
Thanks for having me on, Dom. It's important for the public to be aware of the greed and selfishness of my colleagues on the board of the Montgomery County Commissioners, because they were sneaky about the way they went about this to raise not only their own salary, the salary of all the elected officials. And I believe in public service, not self-service. And they realize that Montgomery County is an overwhelmingly Democrat county in voter registration. And they have safe seats for the two majority commissioners and also the county row officers that are elected. And they don't have consequences when they face the public. So they have the nerve to increase their own salary. And what really bothers me is the Montgomery County property owners are also getting hit with higher property taxes. And it's the third consecutive year in a row where property owners are facing higher property taxes, yet the Democrats in Montgomery County government believe it's okay to increase their own salary by 12%. And the county employees, the non-contractual county employees, are getting a 4% pay raise. And then it has a built-in pay raise where every future year where county employees get a pay raise, the elected officials get 1% lower. So it's really disgusting, and I believe they have a lot of nerve after the mismanagement of the financial handlings in Montgomery County and the endless cycle of higher property taxes to increase their own salary.
Well, Joe, let's parse this out. So Valerie Arcouche will make then, with his 12% increase, approximately what?
She'll make over $100,000. She'll make about $101,000.
Okay. Joe, the argument, I guess, is people out there vote for this stuff. Are they unaware? I mean, they can have a primary if everybody is Montgomery County, you would know better than anybody I can bring on. My sense is it's Little Philadelphia at this point. Is it that far gone where you can increase by 12% in the middle of inflation and everything else, and other than you, it barely gets a ripple?
Unfortunately, yes. Montgomery County is that far gone. Montgomery County's extremely liberal. The Democrat registration far outnumbers Republican registration. To give you an idea, Dom, this past midterm, Josh Shapiro won the governor's race by 40 points against Doug Mastriano here in Montgomery County. So that gives you an idea of how Democrat it is. And they realize it. And as long as these Democrats have the backing of the Democrat establishment, and they can get through a Democrat primary, they're safe in the general election come November. And in return, they're being selfish and milking the taxpayers dry. And I think it's very important for people to be aware of it, because the public has to know what's going on and the consequences we have with becoming like Philadelphia.
Well, absolutely. They are, without a doubt, a major thing. Joe, I have you here. I'm asking everybody. It's a major politician in our area, someone in standing, and you're connected throughout the state. I've come on board even months ago around the idea that Republicans have to get into the mail-in ballot fight, while also simultaneously, I don't think they're at odds, trying to dislodge Act 77 by every means imaginable. But you know Josh Shapiro as well as I do. He is a lot smarter than Wolf. He's in good health. He's ruthless, relentless. I don't see how you're going to get Act 77 out by 2024. So what should Republicans be doing, do you think?
That was very accurate what you said, Dom. It's the sad truth and the reality that Act 77 is a devastating piece of unconstitutional legislation that came out of Harrisburg that is going to not go away anytime soon. Shapiro, as you said, definitely doesn't want it gone. And unfortunately, all the Republicans in the Pennsylvania State Senate unanimously passed Act 77, while the Democrats actually opposed it. So they don't want to put the blame on themselves either. So I think you're going to find a lock there in Harrisburg where we're not going to have true election reform. What I can see Josh Shapiro doing is trying to portray himself as someone that helps with election integrity by implementing, let's just say, something like voter ID. Well, what good is voter ID if you're voting by mail? No one's checking your ID. So the root of all the problems with what we're facing in our election system here in Pennsylvania and other swing states is mail-in voting. And here in Pennsylvania, because of Act 77, we have 50 days of no excuse mail-in voting. That's the longest vote by mail period of time in the entire country. Over 1 million people already voted in the midterm election before the Fetterman and Oz debate. And it's a problem, and it's not going away. So I encourage my supporters to vote in person because I simply believe the less hands between you and your ballot, the more likely it is to count. But the more hands involved, whether it's the postal system, whoever's handling that mail-in ballot, it creates more problems. And we see that election cycle after
Well, wait a minute, Joe, let me interrupt. I'm in complete agreement, as you know, and voter ID is a big thing that I do hope happens. But, Joe, I've seen the analysis here. We are not going to win statewide that I can see unless we're out there getting mail-in ballots at the same time by these people, Joe, who are not the true believer conservatives, people that would follow Joe Gale to the gates of hell. I'm talking about these irregular voters, these sort of Republicans. Trump turned them on, but we can't find a candidate every time that's going to turn them on, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's another problem. We have terrible candidates that we're putting forward. I thought both the Senate and gubernatorial candidate that we had in Pennsylvania were lousy candidates, and we lost the opportunity during what was considered a red wave, where we actually lost the Senate seat. And after the lockdowns and shutdowns with Tom Wolf, we have another liberal governor. So we really squandered a prime opportunity. But what frustrates me, Dom, is I believe the Republican establishment swamp is totally content with that. Because as long as they can make deals for crumbs, whether it's in Philadelphia, if they get patronage jobs in the Philadelphia Parking Authority, whether it's jobs at the county courthouse or contracts from county government, that's why they're in politics. They're not in politics because they love the Bible and the Constitution and family values. They're in it for enriching themselves and their cronies. And this pay raise you saw in Montgomery County that the Democrats ran through is an example of that. And I believe as long as there's the status quo where here in Harrisburg in Pennsylvania, the Republicans maintained a majority in the state Senate. However, they lost the majority in the state House. That flipped. They'll just go out on a fundraising tour where donate more money, we have to win back the House, and nothing ever comes of it. So I'm very critical of those Republicans that squander these opportunities, and I believe intentionally sabotage prime opportunities.
Well, wait a minute, though. I can see you making that, Joe, I can see you making that case on Oz as an establishment candidate, something like that. What's the criticism of Mastriano from you?
Well, you brought the topic up of Act 77 and mail-in voting. I called Mastriano Doug Mail-in Mastriano because he voted for that terrible legislation. That took the hot issue, election integrity, off the table. But Mastriano did a good job because he's a con artist of conning people into believing that he was the savior of election integrity, when really he was part of the problem. And all you have to do is look back at the primary in the spring. And Josh Shapiro spent a couple $1 million funding radio, TV, and mailers, helping Mastriano win the Republican nomination. And Dom, Shapiro didn't even hide behind it. It was paid for by Shapiro for governor, not some shadow PAC that they funnel money through and hide behind. They were in your face about it. You had Republican Party bosses doing fundraisers openly for Shapiro. You see former Republican Party bosses working for Josh Shapiro. You see them on Shapiro's transition committee as the new governor next year. There's a lot of establishment collusion between the two parties, and a lot of the public doesn't realize that there's really one party, and that is the establishment, and they have all the bases covered, and they don't care who's in power because they're filling their pockets with our tax dollars, and it's wrong. And I do my best to disrupt that system, that constant system of corruption and scandal that we have here in Pennsylvania.
Joe, thank you. Thanks as always. To be continued anytime, Joe Gale. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Dom. And I would encourage your listeners to go on my website, joegale.com. I posted the video of this meeting where the Democrats raised their salary, and it's important they watch this and see how smug their reaction is when I try to fight against it. So I encourage them to check out the video.
Thank you, Joe. Have a good Christmas.
You're welcome, Tom. You too. Merry Christmas.
All right, Joe Gale here on Talk Radio 1210. Dan, the guy I'd love to get on is the stooge for Valerie Arkush. Valerie Arkush came on well before Dan Borowski was here. It's probably not happening for another millennium or so, I think. 12% increase while Montgomery County is Little Philadelphia. All right, more calls coming up at 855-839-1210. Leslie in Bryn Mawr. All right, Leslie, who do you have today?
Well, the Joe Gale interview was fantastic. Pennsylvania needs a lot more Joe Gales for sure.